Hey everybody, welcome back to the Derek's Cute Art YouTube channel, where we talk about all things art, design, illustration, and art related. For those of you who haven't heard of me before, my name is Derek, and I'm a digital designer and multimedia artist. And today I wanted to talk about why I chose graphic design over illustration, and my overall experience being a graphic designer here in 2022. For a bit of background on me, I've been a graphic designer for about 3 years now. I graduated from art and design school back in 2020, but I was working even when I was in school. I mentioned this in a few other videos, but I actually used to be an illustration major, but I switched over to graphic design. I just took one typography class and the rest was it. It just kind of synced with my brain. I always thought of my art as a business, and graphic design just kind of connected all the dots. It was just kind of something that, oh wow, I've always wondered how I'm gonna build my career as an artist, and graphic design kind of offers a practical path for that. It teaches me how to market myself and display my work more professionally and make me useful to even other people than just doing illustrations for my own personal benefit. And that's what really motivated me to switch my major. And don't get me wrong, it was really rough to switch, and I even kind of regretted a bit of that. But in the end, I felt like it was the right choice for me as an artist and where I wanted to be in the future. And as for my experience as a graphic designer now, I love my job. I love the work that I do. I definitely love the work-life balance that I have, and that I actually have a consistent job that allows me to be creative and express my thoughts and work with clients and creatively solve problems. It can be a really fulfilling career, and there will always be a need for graphic designers in the world. Names of the profession will change, but the ideas and skills behind the role will always be needed. And I still even end up working on some illustration projects and some even animation. And so that was just really cool to see how my other skills and interests fused into this career. And don't get me wrong, there are some downsides to this career that I feel aren't even talked about enough. And some of that is a lot of graphic designers end up having to do years and years of production work to even make their way into the field. And even still then, when you're working on what I would consider more complex design projects, you're still doing a lot of production work. And for anybody who doesn't know what production work is, it's mostly just that technical editing that is done to work before it goes out into the media. So photo editing, going back in and fixing typos, doing pre-press for a design before it gets out to print, or just any minor fixes that the team needs that the main designer just doesn't have time to handle. And I've done my fair share of production work, but at other roles I was the only graphic designer, and I did my fair share of designing too, so I was like my own one-stop shop for the place I was working at. But I will say this about graphic design: it is a stable art profession. There's economic mobility within the career, and you can actually end up in some really fun and inspiring roles. And that was another reason why I moved into this profession. I saw that it had a lot of creative challenges that you could really handle for businesses and clients. One of the designers I always looked to as an inspiration was a fellow Michigander, and if those of you who don't know, I'm from Michigan, was Aaron Draplin and his work. And he's kind of like a exception to a lot of designers in the career field, but still, seeing someone who was just able to do the work that they wanted and the style that they wanted and set up tons of design trends was just inspiring. And he's what I consider kind of like the modern illustrator. And another thing that made me realize that I didn't really portray my true calling, why I went into the creative field, was that while learning graphic design, it taught me skills on how to become a better artist. Design is the foundation of every good painting that you've ever seen. And getting a good handle on typography, composition, and layout are skills that you use in tons of professional illustration. That, and just having the skill to market your own work. Not many artists know how to do that. And a lot of illustrators end up picking up design anyway, so that they could have a little bit of extra income and just learn how to show their work in the best possible light. And I do love this profession, and I love the creators in the space, and I feel like graphic design is a very self-aware art movement, at least in the younger crowd. As always with every group or association, there's still a bit of catch up on the older crowd to what the younger crowd's thinking. But I find a lot of modern designers that you'll see on YouTube, like Kel Lauren or Elliot, they just are more in line with like our social values and really trying to push up the movements. And graphic design has been involved in so many social movements, and so it's just great to see and be in a thriving community that tackles things that matter. But I do feel like the profession does get over glamorized, and not many people talk about the drudge of the profession. And graphic design does have a high career dissatisfaction rate. And now part of that is, I think, the pay for the profession for a lot of artists versus the student loans that some people take out. I know a lot of graphic designers that went to really top-end schools and end up paying top-end prices, and you end up starting out making less than $40,000 in some roles. And you'll just see that, like, as in the career, there is a bit of a grind. And I got lucky in my job where I landed a competitive rate, but I had some friends start out in some really bad design jobs that took advantage of them. And it can lead to a lot of people feeling dissatisfied and switching careers. And some graphic designers switch into other design fields because they just can't handle it anymore. A lot of designers have been switching into the UI UX profession or becoming product designers, which are just more technical design roles that deal with the development of a product or website and require some more specific mindset or hands-on skills that normal graphic designers don't handle. Neither though, graphic designers do end up using a lot of the same skills, especially if you're a graphic designer who works on web. But the pay and sometimes how promotions and other jobs ends up making a lot of people shift out of it, and not many people talk about it. And I feel like the profession isn't really respected by a lot of clients and people, and they feel like just because they can download the software, it makes them a designer. And it's just like any other art form. Anybody can pick up a brush, but to have the skill to execute out what your client needs is a whole other story, and not many people can see that. So you'll have a lot of clients and everybody else, including the janitor, telling you how to do your job. But this is common in a lot of creative professions. I mean, you see it even when a company does a rebrand. Everyone has an opinion on the new logo. And don't get me wrong, reception of the public is important, especially when you're designing something. But sometimes people don't see the long-term vision of the brand. They might have made that design decision and it'll make sense 20 years from now, but the average consumer might not understand that, and a lot of the consumers don't know what they want until they get it. The other side of the profession that not many people talk about is that sometimes you end up working on a lot of boring projects. You'll be working under extremely tight brand guidelines, and you will basically just be kind of creating within their branded template. The job isn't all exciting, fun design projects. You're not doing consistent rebrands unless you're at a really top agency, and getting into those positions is hyper competitive. I mean, you look at any of like the remote roles, you have at least minimum 300 to 500 people applying to them. And then at the local level, you still even have around like 70 to 100 people competing for one position. So a lot of designers start out doing a lot of boring work in the beginning of their career, and a lot even in their later career. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it can be fun. Sometimes it can be interesting to solve these problems. But some days you'll be creating a brochure for a bank or a credit union. You might be working on a sales PDF for some medical client, or you just might end up be making boring icons in XD for the web team. But even then, every now and then, you'll get a fun project on your plate, and you'll just be able to go all out, and you'll just look back at that and be proud. And you'll see out in the world and be like, awesome, I made a cool thing. Or you'll be given a project under such a tight deadline and you won't know what to do, and you and your partner or person on the team end up solving the problem and getting it done very at the right last minute, and you get off on that thrill. You have those moments in the career and it makes it super exciting. That, and sometimes your work just just, even though it's boring, you genuinely end up making people's lives easier. And that can be really fulfilling. Sure, it's for a bank or a small restaurant, but you solved their problem and made their lives easier, and you can get great satisfaction in that. So it's really a profession that really can satisfy some emotional needs, but I do think you have to be realistic going in. And that's why a lot of designers and artists end up having side gigs and taking on freelance work or starting up their own personal project or Instagram page or even becoming mentors, is that sometimes you'll run into these boring creative ruts with your career and you need some place to express that energy. Unfortunately, that's why we got into these jobs, because we didn't want to end up in a job where we couldn't be creative and have fun. Like, is graphic design the perfect creative profession? No. I mean, a lot of people even end up moving into motion design because they get bored of it. And it's really cool because what I like about the profession is that it does diverge. I mean, I picked up motion graphics and videos as a skill, and I do a lot of that at my current job now. And it's super fun. And I learned this new skill and solved problems for my coworkers and clients. So I would say going in, think of graphic design as the start, or just one extra tool in your creative arsenal. And that's why I picked this profession, is that the creative industry is very versatile and you can end up switching your career into something else almost at any point. And that's what I really love about it, is that you kind of just design your own path and your own vision and you just work towards it. And not many other careers you get that satisfaction in, that you actually feel like you can build towards something and make your own home in the industry. Because graphic design is an art and it's ever evolving and it changes with the culture, and you can end up creating your own home. I know a lot of designers who end up creating their own little niche following, and it's amazing and fulfilling. So it makes all those times that you got rejected from a job, or you got berated by a client, or you messed up on a project, or you just slogged through a boring 60 slide PowerPoint, it just makes it all worth it, because you know at the end of the day you're working for yourself and you're building something. And that's what really attracted me to it. I just feel like graphic design was that good middle ground to take me anywhere I wanted in my creative journey. Because like all creative people, we don't like to pick one thing. We like to stay agile, and we don't want to be locked in one spot for the rest of our lives. We want fluidity. We want to be able to express ourselves for how we are now, not how we were a few years ago. All right, now I feel like I'm starting to ramble, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up. So thanks for listening, guys, and as always, please feel free to vet me. Anybody that you take advice from, you should check their credentials. So I always link all of my portfolio, LinkedIn, and other stuff down below. Check out my stuff. Let me know what you think. But you guys have a good one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate it.